Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here in Hollywood, California. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here as we, a bunch of friends, standing around a virtual water cooler, talking about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of TV, maybe some sports here and there every once in a while. And anyway, it's awesome to have you guys here today. And I'm joined here today, of course, by our movie news feed writer and producer, Courtney Ray Allen. Courtney, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good, John.
Awesome. It's great to have you here. And now let's get things started with this. As many of you guys know, Aquaman is coming on December 21st. We've got that movie coming, really December 20th, because that's when they really open the movie, is on the Thursday. And anyway, they've put out 5-minute stuff. They've put out 2-minute trailers, put out TV spots, and now James Wan has given us a couple of new images to take a look at, including this one, which is kind of my favorite. This is one of Willem Dafoe as Vulko, riding a giant hammerhead shark. And of course, all of us at one point or another have desperately wanted to ride a hammerhead shark. Also, we get a good look at Aquaman's brother, King Orm, riding on a giant crocodile of some sorts here, which is also another really good looking shot. Now, nothing earth-shattering here, nothing amazing. It's just more really great looks at this world that James Wan has created. And remember, one of the things that the DC producers have talked about and how happy they are with Aquaman is just this world that James Wan has created for us to go into. You know, somebody once said, and I don't know because I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know how accurate it is, but they said what he did for Atlantis is what Ryan Coogler did for Wakanda. And if that's true, if that's anywhere even near true, I'm going to be happy. I have loved the visuals we've seen from this so far. I think it looks fantastic. I'm excited for Aquaman. Will this be the film to take the DCEU or whatever it is they're calling it now and put it on the right track? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I'm excited for this. You got a great cast. You got a great director. The previews will look good. The images look great to me. December 21st. It's getting closer, guys. It's getting closer. All right. Also off the top here, this just broke this morning. Celebrated an Oscar-winning director, Guillermo del Toro. He's been trying to get this Pinocchio film off the ground for a while. Well, now it's done. Guillermo del Toro and Netflix have just signed a deal that is going to have Guillermo del Toro writing, directing, and producing a Pinocchio movie. Now, it's going to be set in the 1930s. Guillermo del Toro seems to love to set his stories in very politically charged times. It's going to be set in Italy. Also in the reports, they're saying that this Pinocchio is going to be a musical, and most notably, it's going to be stop-motion animation. Everybody loves their Maish, name that song, or name that TV show. Anyway, so it's going to be stop-motion animation. Now, Del Toro went on to say that very, very few things were as formative for him as animation. He says that's the medium that really got his imagination going when he was a kid. And in particular, he's always talked about the fact that he's got a really close personal connection with Pinocchio, that's always been a story that's really resonated with him. Could this be his next great film? We'll have to wait and see. It is intriguing that he's doing this with Netflix, though. So this is something I would have liked to have seen on the big screen, but if Guillermo del Toro's got a vision for it and they can really crank this thing out, then Netflix might be the best place for it. So let's just wait and see how this all turns out. All right, with that stuff out of the way, let's get into our main topics today. Now, how do we select our main topics around here for the John Campea Show? It's simple. You pick them by emailing them into me. Here's how you do it. You just email your topics and questions to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Once again, that's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less, or else I can't even fit them on the screen, even if I wanted to use them. All right, with that out of the way, let's get to our first email today. Courtney, what do we got?
Okay, so Sandy Mitchell says, I saw Halloween this weekend and just loved it. Today, I saw that it made over $77 million at the box office, which doesn't beat Venom's record. Should the studio be disappointed in the result, even though it's still #1 at the box office?
No, you don't be disappointed in a Halloween film, which, by the way, no Halloween film ever has opened to more than $26 million, ever in its history. This thing was originally projected to be in the mid-$40 million opening weekend. Now, granted, that was a few months ago. Then that estimate went up to in the 50s. Then it went up to the 60s. Then they said it could be anywhere between $65 and $80 million. And it comes in right in that range, $77.5 million. Make no mistake about it. This is outstanding. If you had told these suckers 3 months ago that their little Halloween film was going to open to $77.5 million, they would have been popping bottles. I'm telling you that right now, they would have been popping bottles. But, it seems like we live in this age right now where everything's like, oh, but did it break the all-time record? No. Oh, then it failed. No. Okay, so it didn't break the Venom record. Fine. But let's put this in context. Let's look at what this $77.5 million opening really means when we look at it in this context. Let's look at it in 3 different ways. Number 1, for the all-time opening weekend box office records for the month of October, this little Halloween film is now the number 2 all-time at $77.5 million opening. Now, of course, number 1 is Venom. That broke the record a little while ago. It still is the record holder at $80 million. How long will it hold that record? We'll talk about that in just a second. But now let's look at all-time opening for a horror movie. All-time opening for an R-rated horror movie. Well, yeah, you got the record with It that just set the record recently at like $123 million. But this little Halloween film is now the number 2 biggest opening horror film at 77.5. That's amazing. And most importantly for their own franchise, and most impressively, despite how famous the Halloween name is, it is now by far the biggest opening in franchise history at 77.5. And the previous record holder for the franchise was that first Rob Zombie Halloween film that only opened with $26 million. You're talking about a film that has nearly tripled its franchise record. Is the studio disappointed? No, not unless they're idiots. The only way you'd be disappointed in this if you're idiots. Yes, it didn't set the record, and yes, it came close, but who cares? It set a number of other records. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis also got on Twitter the other day to talk about some other records it broke, like best opening film, horror film opening with a female lead, best, biggest opening for a film with a woman lead over 50, a bunch of different smaller records. But no, there's no way you can't be thrilled with this. And you know what? I've never said this about a Halloween film, but it's well-deserved. I've never liked any Halloween film, ever. No, not even the original, but this was a damn good movie. Is it like top 3 movies of the year? No, but it's a damn good movie, and it deserves every bit it gets. Now, let's talk about October again for a second. So Venom sets the record, and then along comes Halloween, coming in number 2. Now, this is 2 films that breaks the previous record. Remember, the previous record was Gravity at like 55 point something million dollars, right? And it held that record for years. And now in 1 month, that record's been broken twice. So how long can Venom and Halloween hold that 1 and 2 spot for the all-time opening weekend in October? Well, next October is going to present some challenges. Let's take a look at this here. Here's a couple of the big projects that are opening next October that are going to possibly pose a threat to both Venom and this new Halloween film. First of all, you got the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. You got to talk about that first. And look, we really don't know if this is a movie that's going to get enough attention to make $50 million opening weekend, or if it's going to get $100 million opening weekend type of attention, but you have to take this film seriously. Also, a movie that's still very far away, so not a lot of people are talking about it yet, but the Ang Lee directed film with Will Smith, Gemini Man. That is going to pose a threat to both Venom and Halloween. And also, just because of how big Mr. Rogers is right now, particularly with the documentary, which is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen, Won't You Be My Neighbor, that new film coming out about Mr. Rogers starring Tom Hanks called You Are My Friend. I'm telling you right now, everybody looks at me like I'm kind of crazy when I say that is a movie that could threaten this record. Believe it. Believe that this movie can threaten that record with the broad generational appeal. It's a multi-generational film with all of the kind of buzz that Mr. Rogers has right now and all that kind of stuff. This is a film that could pose a threat. Will any of these 3 break 77.5 or 80 of Venom? Maybe all 3 of them, maybe none of them, but it's going to be an interesting month next year. We're going to have to keep an eye on this record book. All right, let's move on to the next email. What's next?
Okay, Mark Claiborne says, what's going on? Just last week, Netflix says they're happy with their remaining Marvel shows, and then like 24 hours later, it gets announced that they canceled Luke Cage. Are they all getting the axe?
Okay, so this is the crazy thing. Last week, Iron Fist gets canceled, right? So Iron Fist gets canceled, fine. Netflix is fielding a lot of questions from people. What's going to happen with the rest of the shows? Is Marvel pulling the plug on these shows? Who's in charge of this? And remember, we talked about this on the show on Friday. Netflix, their chief content officer, I can't remember his name, but remember he said this. Let's look at this quote that he mentioned last week. Let's bring this up here. So this guy comes out and he says, those shows, like the rest of their Netflix shows, Ted Sarandos, I've never pronounced his name right, who cares? Those shows are for us to cancel, he said, and we're super happy with their performance. These shows, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Punisher, they're for us to cancel. And we are super happy with all of their performances so far. Really? Because about 24 hours later, this happens. Let's take a look at this. They cancel Luke Cage. 24 hours later, after this dimwit comes out and says, oh, no, these are for us to cancel, and we're super happy. Like 24 hours later, Luke Cage gets canceled. Right after this guy comes out and tells us everything's fine. You know what it reminds me of? For those of you who are old enough to remember the Iraq War, remember when the U.S. was invading Iraq and they were just bowling over them? And they had that Iraqi foreign minister on news every day saying, no, everything's fine. No American soldiers have stepped foot in Baghdad, while you can hear the explosions going on in the background. That's what this is. This guy is that Iraqi press minister. No, nothing else is getting canceled, guys. Everything's great. 24 hours later, there goes Luke Cage. All right, so let's talk about this. In the span of 1 week, Netflix has gone from 5 shows or 6 shows down to 3 shows. Because they were Daredevil, they were Punisher, they were Jessica Jones, they were Luke Cage, they were Iron Fist, and they were Defenders. So first comes out the confirmation that they weren't going to do another Defenders. Then comes the cancellation of Iron Fist. Then comes the cancellation of Luke Cage. And what was 6 shows just a couple of weeks ago, we're now down to 3. So you would be forgiven if you wanted to look at your TV or at your computer monitor and say, what the hell is going on? Like, on one breath, you're telling us, no, we're super happy with everything. 24 hours later, boom, it's gone. Now, there were a couple of thoughts and conspiracies going around out there, many of which were completely rational to at least speculate about. One was this. Some people are asking about, hey, is it a possibility that Netflix is just kind of pulling the plug on Luke Cage and Iron Fist because they were just canceled back to back, because what they really want to do is pursue a Heroes for Hire show? That's a possibility. That's certainly a possibility. Some people thought, were they canceled to be brought over to Disney? Well, technically speaking, only Netflix could make that decision. But if Netflix decided, we're not really big on Iron Fist, and I don't think any of us were really big on Iron Fist, and we're not so happy with the way Luke Cage is going, maybe Disney's going to pull them over there. However, the Hollywood Reporter claimed to have a source that gave them some insight as to why, maybe not Iron Fist, but why Luke Cage had their plug pulled. Here's what the Hollywood Reporter had to say. They said this. A source tells the Hollywood Reporter that the cancellation was due to creative differences and the inability to agree to terms for a 3rd season of the show. Netflix doesn't release viewership figures for its content. Now listen to that again. They say it's due to creative differences. One of the interesting things here that is not included in this report is creative differences between who? Was it creative differences between the showrunner and Netflix? That's one thing. Was it creative differences between Netflix and Marvel? That's a totally different issue. That raises a whole bunch of other different questions. And being unable to come to an agreement for season 3, well, wait a minute. Are these shows on a season-to-season, agreement-by-agreement basis? I thought this was an ongoing agreement. The Luke Cage scenario has taken a concept that we kind of thought we had an idea of. Like, we kind of thought, while they never disclosed the full details of the deal between Netflix and Marvel, we thought we had a basic understanding of it. It looked like these shows and these properties were Netflix's as long as they wanted to use them. Maybe that's not the case now. Maybe that's not what's happening. Maybe it's a little bit more complicated than that. Maybe Marvel does want to pull these shows. But here's the thing. There are some people suggesting online right now that the reason that Marvel or that Netflix canceled Luke Cage and canceled Iron Fist was because that deep down, it's because Marvel wanted to pull them off that network and pull them over to the Disney streaming service. I doubt that for two different reasons. Reason number one is the fact that I don't think Marvel has the ability to just tell Netflix to cancel a show. I don't think they have that ability. Could be wrong about that, but I don't think they do. But number two is, I don't think Disney... Hey, look, if they were going to go after any of the Netflix shows, it would probably be Daredevil. Not Iron Fist, which nobody really cared about, and not Luke Cage, which had a 50% good season one and a 50% terrible season one, and in my opinion, kind of a terrible season two. So the two worst films, or the two worst TV projects, I just kind of doubt that Marvel would go, oh man, we really want those on our streaming service instead of Punisher and Daredevil. That makes no sense to me. But look, this whole scenario has just showed us that we have a lot more questions than answers at this point. We're going to have to keep our eyes open moving on. I mean, seriously, for all I know, tomorrow they're going to announce the cancellation of Jessica Jones, and then on Wednesday they're going to announce the cancellation of Punisher. I mean, that's simply the world we live in right now. So let's wait and see how this all kind of turns out. Okay, let's move on to the next email. What's next, Courtney?
Addie Shetty says, hi, John. Warner Brothers dropped the teaser for The Curse of La Llorona, sorry. I liked it very much. What are your thoughts?
You know, I got to say right now, the first time I did a story about this movie was a few weeks ago, and I read it as, okay, look, guys, this is just kind of how it reads. I read it as La Llorona. La Llorona is how it is spelt out, right? And as soon as I said that, my Twitter blew up. I had people writing me, John, it's La Llorona! And they were like really mad at me, which, you know what? I couldn't even fault them for, because us Canadians get really touchy about that too. There's this big famous goaltender who played on the Montreal Canadiens for a long time and then on the Colorado Avalanche. His name was Patrick Roy, but his last name was spelled R-O-Y. So people would look at it and say, oh, Patrick Roy, and us Canadians would go, it's Patrick Roy, you ignorant bastard. Like, that's what we would do. And so I got a little bit of a taste of that after I pronounced La Llorona as La Llorona. So I probably butchered it pretty badly. But anyway, yes, the trailer dropped. I'll tell you what, trailer's great. It's spooky, it's eerie, it's creepy. Like that whole little thing about the kid being in the car and the windows just automatic or just rolling down by themselves. The kid's in the car and the doors are unlocked, and there's like a blanket or something caught in the door, and the kid goes to open the door, and I'm screaming at my monitor, just leave the door closed. Who cares if a blanket's, like, you were probably screaming at your monitors as well. And then he opens it, of course, there's that woman there. And it's great. Now, of course, this is based on a real mythology that has circulated for a long time. Not one I'm tremendously familiar with. Like, our biggest mythology in Canada is a haunted moose who walks the forest at night collecting all the maple syrup. That's about as far as Canadian mythology goes. So I'm not really familiar with it, but all I know is that the trailer delivered on making it feel creepy, making it feel like it was an interesting story. It gave us all the meat of what the mythology is. So you know what? For a first little trailer for it, perfect. It hit all the right notes for a first trailer. I dug it. I thought it worked really well. And while I wasn't even thinking about this movie before, I'm really excited to see this movie now. And I always say that, right? That's the measure of how good a trailer is. The job of a trailer is to take your excitement level, no matter how high or how low it is, and bump it up a couple of notches, right? I didn't really know anything about this movie, so therefore didn't have a lot of interest in it. See this trailer, boom, I'm excited about it now. Now I want to see it. What was your guys' reaction to the trailer? What did you think about it? Jump down in the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's move on to the final email of today. What's next?
Okay, this one's from Robert Flynn. He says, I'm ridiculously excited for The Mandalorian. Did you see the images online showing George Lucas visited the set and pictures of George, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni? Do you think George is getting involved in Star Wars again?
No, I don't think George is getting involved in Star Wars again. But if you're a Star Wars fan from any generation, you can't help but be excited by this image. Let's take a look at this. Bring this up here. This is from Jon Favreau's Instagram account. Jon Favreau put up this picture. It's a picture of him, George Lucas, Dave Filoni, and of course himself, Jon Favreau, standing there on set. And I believe Jon Favreau said this was a birthday surprise. Apparently George Lucas dropped in on set to surprise him. Now, of course, that's great. And of course it stirs the pot and gets everybody wondering, is George getting involved? Nah, he's not getting involved. I think he was just there to lend a lot of support. I think he was there to kind of just keep an eye on things. Because when you're George Lucas, Who's going to say, no, you can't come on set? If you're George Lucas and you can drive to any set in Hollywood, particularly any set in the world that has the word Star Wars written on it, ain't nobody's going to turn you away. So it doesn't matter, black and white, whatever. You can show up there. You can be wearing your flannel lumberjack shirt. You're all good. They're going to let you in no matter what. So you go on there and you get George Lucas standing there, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni. Now, we've known for a while that Dave Filoni was going to be directing the first 1 or 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. For those of you who don't know who Dave Filoni is, Dave Filoni was the showrunner, lead producer for the animated series The Clone Wars, and for Rebels, that a lot of people like. I'm a big fan of Rebels myself. But it does remind us again that there is an impressive looking lineup of directors coming to us for this. Obviously, Dave Filoni off the top. We got Taika Waititi from Thor Ragnarok and What We Do in the Shadows. He's going to be directing 1 or 2 episodes. Rick Famuyiwa, who of course directed Dope, and he was supposed to direct Flash until he left the Flash movie over creative differences. And then of course, Ron Howard's daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, that we most know from her Jurassic World movies, and she was Gwen Stacy in that one Spider-Man film. And she directed this little short film called Soulmates that got a lot of attention around Hollywood. And of course, she's going to be directing 1 or 2 episodes as well. And that got a lot of people speculating. We talked about this on the show the other day is, I wonder if Ron Howard taking over and saving Solo, that a part of his agreeing to do that was, you got to let my daughter direct something Star Wars. Like, I don't want to be pessimistic. I'm not trying to look at this from a pessimism point of view, but you can't blame people for like, oh, Ron Howard jumps in last second to save Solo, and all of a sudden his daughter gets a directing gig on Star Wars. I mean, probably nothing, but you can't, blame people for being just a little bit suspicious about it. But again, let's get back to the original question. Could a picture like this indicate to us that a George Lucas is coming back in? He's getting back into the fold? No, I don't think so. From what my understanding was, it was just Kathleen Kennedy just invited him to come down because she knew, I think Favreau wanted a visit from George Lucas, and I think Lucas just decided, and he was going to accommodate it and come on down. But look, I am so excited for this Mandalorian show. I am so excited for it for this main reason. You guys know that my biggest complaint about the Star Wars universe is that they have continuously shrunk it more and more and more and more. I've given this analogy before, but let me say it again. If you want to know whether you live in a big town or a small town, simple. Every time you walk outside your door and go walking down your street, how often do you bump into people you already know? If every time you step outside your door and walk up your street, every single time you bump into people you know, you're probably living in a pretty small town. If you go out for a walk one day and only maybe 1 out of every 3 days you see somebody you recognize, that's probably a good indication that you live in a pretty big town. In the town of Star Wars, every time it feels like, whether it's a new project or a new project they're talking about, that we step outside the door, we're seeing Yoda, or we're seeing young Han Solo, or people want to talk about a young Jabba the Hutt, or let's get an Emperor Palpatine movie, or let's see, Luke again, let's see Han Solo again. Hey, let's do a young Chewbacca. No, let's do a young this or a young everything. I feel like every time we step through the doors into the Star Wars universe, we're bumping into people we know every single time, which to me means you're shrinking it more and more and more. The reason I love the idea of The Mandalorian is because we're exploring a time period we never have. It's being led by a character we've never met in a part of the galaxy we've never really spent time in. They are expanding the universe, and that is exciting to me. And it's also exciting to me that Dave Filoni, that a lot of people have wanted to direct a Star Wars movie, I've always said he's got no experience directing live action. Give him something to cut his teeth on. This is it. This is the perfect thing for Dave Filoni to cut his teeth on directing live action. A Star Wars episodic show, direct a couple of episodes, cut his teeth on that, and then I think Dave Filoni will be in a much better position to perhaps one day actually direct a live action Star Wars film, which I think will get a lot of people excited. So there's a whole bunch of stuff and emotions and topics that just these simple little Instagram pictures bring up, but it is a lot to get a Star Wars fan excited, so I love seeing that stuff. All right, guys, that will do it for all of our main topics today. But listen, in the world of movie and TV news, there's always a ton of stuff going on. Now, we don't always have time to talk about all the things going on in detail, but if you watch the John Campea show, we want to make sure that you are caught up as possible on all the big things going on. So that's why Courtney puts together this little segment that we call the Movie News Feed. Take it away, Courtney.
Miami Vice vet Don Johnson may be putting his detective badge back on as he is now expected to join murder mystery film Knives Out. The actor will work alongside writer and director Rian Johnson, known for Star Wars The Last Jedi, and a talented cast that includes Daniel Craig from Spectre, Captain America's Chris Evans, and Michael Shannon from The Shape of Water. The actor is said to be rearranging his schedule to accommodate the new film as he is currently shooting for upcoming HBO series Watchmen, according to Deadline. Knives Out is expected to begin filming next month. Next up, if you've ever wondered why Jet Li never appeared in the Matrix films, question no more. The actor recently told Abacus News, "I realized the Americans wanted me to film for 3 months but be with the crew for 9. And for 6 months, they wanted to record and copy all my moves into a digital library. By the end of the recording, the right to these moves would go to them. I was thinking, I've been training my entire life and we martial artists could only grow older. Yet they could own my moves as intellectual property forever." Of course, it was a huge role to turn down at the time, but can you blame him? This was certainly one of Jet Li's most worthy fights, but thankfully nowhere near his last, as he will be returning to the big screen as the Emperor of China in 2020 live-action remake of Mulan. Next up, in an unexpected and heartfelt Instagram post from this weekend, Hellboy and Cruel Intentions actress Selma Blair revealed that she has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. She posted a photo with the caption focused on thanking her Another Life costume designer and other members of the show's team for their constant support. Blair, who was diagnosed in August, details how the disease has affected her life, saying, "I drop things, my memory is foggy, and my left side is asking for directions from a broken GPS. But we are doing it, and I laugh, and I don't know exactly what I will do precisely, but I will do my best." Her post serves as a humble reminder that movie stars face their own personal hardships we don't always see. Us movie fans are sending love to you, Selma. And more sad news coming out of Hollywood, stars are mourning the death of director Danny Liner, who died Thursday after battling lung cancer, according to Deadline. Several of Liner's collaborators over the years took to social media with touching tributes. He was best known for comedies such as Dude, Where's My Car and Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. His humor and creativity will be remembered dearly. And finally, action thriller Eve, starring the lovely Jessica Chastain, has added both Gina Davis and Joan Chen to its cast list. The plot is centered around a ruthless assassin who is being hunted by former employers while also trying to tell her family the truth about the nature of her job. Colin Farrell, Common, and John Malkovich are all expected to appear in the film as well. Davis is an Oscar winner from The Accidental Tourist and, of course, the classic Beetlejuice. Chen recently wrapped Netflix movie Tiger Tail with John Cho. Production is currently underway. And that'll do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed.
Guys, and that is the movie news feed for today, getting you caught up on all the other stuff going on in the world of film. And that is going to give us now the opportunity to get to some of your live questions. We, of course, save a little bit of time here on the show to take some of your live questions as well. Now, listen, I'm going to let you guys know this right up front. A bunch of you guys have been wondering, hey, John, why don't the live questions pop up on the screen anymore? Fear not, that is coming back. We still got a few technical issues to work out in the new studio here, but in probably sometime later this week, you will see the live questions visually on the screen as well. But just for today, you're just going to have to hear them being read by Courtney. So with that out of the way, a bunch of you guys have been sending some live questions. So Courtney, what questions have been sent in?
Okay, Ghostface 1999 says, "Hey John, I saw DC's Titans. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you see it. Congrats to you and Courtney on the new show."
Well, thank you so much, man. And yeah, listen, I have been hearing from a number of people that this new DC Titans show is actually not that bad. The trailers were atrociously awful. And I'm still kind of in the position that I don't want to get the DC streaming service when it's just really Titans that's there. I will probably give the show a shot, or give the streaming channel a shot, once that new Swamp Thing show starts. I'm very intrigued by the Swamp Thing show. Once that launches, I'll probably buy into the streaming service, and at that point, I'll give the Titans a shot, but I'm probably going to have to wait until then, but I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. All right, what's next?
Thanos Kuvaras, 6 Feet Under is in my top 3 series for sure.
A lot of people, that is kind of one of those shows, when you talk to a lot of people about favorite shows of all time, you know, you get Breaking Bad mentioned, you get The Wire mentioned, that one comes up an awful lot too, you'll get some comedies mentioned, but 6 Feet Under is one of those shows that will get some votes. If you ever gather like 100 people together and say best show of all time, you're going to get 4 or 5 votes minimum. for 6 Feet Under. It was a really popular one. It was never one that I got into a lot. Like, I watched a bunch of the show, but I never watched a full season of it. And I don't remember very much about it at all, except that people were ludicrously in love with it. So believe me, you are not alone in your love for that show. All right, what's next?
Rinder Singh says, been watching Doctor Who since I was a kid. I introduced it to my 2 young children the other day, and they loved it. It's great for the whole family because it's fun, exciting, and educational. Please watch.
Yeah, a lot of people have been telling me that this new Doctor Who, like, I don't watch Doctor Who. I've never really been on Doctor Who, except when I was a little kid. And I can't remember what the one actor's name was who had the big, bold hat with the red scarf. I used to like that Doctor Who. But I haven't really watched it a lot ever since then at all. I'm not a Doctor Who fan per se. I've had so many people saying this new season of Doctor Who is for new viewers. It's the perfect time to jump on board, and I'm hearing really good things about it, so I will check it out. But I've got a number of things I got to get through first. I still haven't even started Daredevil season 3. I got to get through Mayans because I haven't even, like, I'm like 2 episodes into Mayans. I got to get caught up on that. There's a lot of stuff I still need to get caught up on, but I will get around to Doctor Who. All right, it's next.
From Paul, if Fantastic Beasts 2 is a success at the box office, do you think it will increase the chances of Pirates 6 happening with Johnny Depp?
I don't think it has anything. I don't think one thing has anything to do with the other, to be honest with you. I really don't think. Look, I think Fantastic Beasts 2 could completely flop, and it will not hurt the chances of another Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I think Fantastic Beasts could be the biggest box office film of all time, and I don't think that will increase the chances of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie at all. Pirates of the Caribbean has pretty much run its course, but the one argument you can make for doing another one is that despite all the bad press, the last film actually didn't do all that bad at the box office. I think it approached 700 million. I might be a little bit off there, but I know it made a bunch of money. It made a ton of money. So will they go back and do another one? I don't know, but I really don't think that the success or failure of Fantastic Beasts, even though Johnny Depp is in it, I don't think that'll have any influence on it whatsoever. All right, what's next?
Ben Rayner says, hey, John, I was watching Dude, Where's My Car, and I forgot that your girl, Jennifer G, was in it. I always forget Amy Adams is in Ricky Bobby, too.
Well, yeah, but oh my God, it's been a long time since I've seen, like, either of those films, but I had no idea that Jennifer Garner was in that. I had no idea. For those of you who don't know, and you should all feel the same way, Jennifer Garner is my all-time celebrity crush. I mean, yeah, there's not many laws of men that I would not break at her behest. She could tell me to do terrible things, and I would just probably do it because she's Jennifer Garner. But I totally forgot she's. I can't even remember it. Now I got to go back and watch it again. Thanks so much for that. All right, what's next?
Julius Goodwin, could DC or Sony eventually surpassing MCU if they continue to siphon off MCU's talent, example James Gunn, and learn from their past mistakes?
Well, I mean, it's not about siphoning off their talent. I mean, we see people jump for doing movies with one studio and doing movies with another studio and all that kind of stuff. It's not a matter of ciphering talent. Look, whenever anybody wants to say to me, the MCU will always be the top dog, and the DC universe or Sony stuff or, let's say Paramount starts doing comic book movies at some point, can never touch it. All I ever want to say is remember history. There was a time, not all that long ago, that when you said social media, it meant one thing: MySpace. That's what social media meant. And nothing was ever, to suggest anything else would ever come close to MySpace would get you laughed out of a room. Well, who's laughing now? I think half of you guys watching this don't even recognize the damn term MySpace, right? There is only Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and whatever else there is out there now, and it's gone. Just keep that in mind. No matter how strong something looks right now. Remember when they said Jose Aldo couldn't be beat? Remember when they said he was never be beat? Conor McGregor goes in the ring, knocks him out in 10 seconds. So never say never. So I do think it'll happen at some point because everything ebbs and flows and goes in cycles. But I don't think it'll have anything to do with siphoning off talent. There's a bunch of talent in Hollywood. People use different talent here and there. James Gunn was not a Marvel talent. James Gunn was a talent in Hollywood long before he ever joined Marvel. So it'll happen someday, but not because of talent ciphering. All right, what's next?
This one's from Static Space Sean. Saw Halloween, thought it was good. Did you notice that Michael Myers was credited as the Shape? Do you know why?
I did not notice. I didn't pay attention to that. And considering it's a brand new movie, I wouldn't want to go into it too much speculation anyway, because a lot of people still haven't seen it yet. So I want to be careful about that. So I did not notice that, but now when I go back and watch it again, because Anne still wants to see it, so I'm going to go back with her and watch it, but I will keep my eyes open for that. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, what's next?
Julius Goodwin is back and says, do you still do open mic?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I just did an open mic yesterday. I just did an open mic. Like, I will not do open mic Monday through Friday like I used to. I just don't have time for that anymore. But I'll probably try to squeeze in one or two on the weekend, because I know you guys love open mic, and I love doing open mic. And, you know, maybe if I don't know, here and there. But yes, you will see open mics, at least one a week, pop up from time to time, for sure. What's next?
Stephen C. 20, over under 50% we see any Superman movie by 2021.
Oh, by 2021, a Superman movie? Oh, like under 3%. For them to have a Superman movie in theaters by 2021, they would have to be in pre-production now. So, because we're getting close to 2019, they would have to be in pre-production, start shooting sometime mid to late next year. So I'm going to say the likelihood of getting an actual Superman movie on screen by 2021, very, very slim. I'm not going to say impossible, not impossible, but I will say pretty slim. All right, what's next?
Stephen C. 20 is back with, are Batman versus Superman's problem script-related or directorial?
You know, I'm somebody who liked Batman versus Superman, but it does have its problems. I mean, that's for sure. And I think it is a marriage of a couple different things. I think it is partially script, it is partially direction. You really can't ever get, at the end of the day, the credit for a great movie goes to a lot of people. At the end of the day, the blame for a bad movie goes to a lot of people, even though the center of that is always the director. The director will get the most glory, and the director will also get the most blame. They're not the only ones, but they're the ones in that chair. So even though there are script problems with Batman versus Superman, I think some of the other problems in the film are also directorial decisions. Even though I like the film, I think a lot of the problems are directorial and writing at the same time. All right, what's next?
Jeff Jordan says, what do we really know about the December Deadpool movie?
Nothing. There's an assumption going on out there that this Deadpool movie in December is a re-release, recut of Deadpool 2 just in PG-13. But when you look at the actual statements and the official releases coming out about it, nothing ever actually officially says that, I don't believe. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to just be a PG-13 version of Deadpool 2. It very well may be, and I'm excited to see it. I think they'll probably do some very funny stuff with that. But as far as what do we actually know, nothing. We know nothing other than it's Deadpool and that it's coming out in December 21st. And that's about it. The way they're being able to keep a cap on this and maintain the aura of mystery about it is incredible. So, yeah, I mean, you got to figure, we're almost in November. You got to figure we're going to know something soon, right? I mean, that only makes, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. All right, what's next?
Stephen C. 20 is back and says, in every action I take is for the greater good of my people. My soul is that what you have taken from me. God, I wish General Zod could come back.
Can you read that one again?
In every action I take for the greater good of my people, my soul, that is what you have taken from me. God, I wish General Zod would come back.
Jeez, I mean, I can only, I don't, that's probably from Man of Steel, and that's probably Jor-El, but I don't even recognize the line, so I'm not really sure. You stumped me there, even though it's clearly from Man of Steel, but there you go. All right, what's next?
Jeffrey Dempster says, a great space pirate double feature, Solo and Ice Pirates, Space Herpes.
What was the last one?
A great space pirate double feature, Solo and Ice Pirates, Space Herpes.
Nice part. Holy crap, I'm not kidding you. The very first time my mom and dad took me to the drive-in, I can't remember what the main one was, but Ice Pirates was on that double feature. I remember that. And you know what? Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman is in, and I think, I want to say Angelica Houston is as well. I can't remember for sure. But Ron Perlman, if you want to look up something funny, look up pictures of Ron Perlman in Ice Pirates, because he looks like you never think you'd see Ron Perlman dressed up. That one was really funny as well. That is a very cool, first of all, any double feature with Ice Pirates in it is a real fun day. That's a fun day. It's been a long time since I've seen that, but watching it with Solo, that's a pretty good one. All right, what's next?
This is from Talkie75. Venom says, who is that guy when he sees Stan Lee?
Oh, yeah, who was that guy? That was a great cameo. And sorry for any of you who didn't see Venom because we just spoiled the cameo of but anyway, you all knew Stan Lee was going to have a cameo. It was a really good cameo, and I liked Venom's reaction to it. It was very, very fun. All right, what's next?
Wave.Wonder says, got drunk with my girlfriend for the Fathom event. Twilight.
Read that again? Sorry.
Wave Wonder says, got drunk with my girlfriend for Fathom event Twilight anniversary. Admittedly, guilty pleasure. Uh-oh. I went black for a second. Does the series deserve the level of hate it got?
Oh,
Visually
God.
pretty.
Fathom Events did a re-release of Twilight? Wow. I did not. Look, honestly, let me say this for Twilight, okay? Honestly, I know it's the cool thing to just bash on Twilight. I get it, but let's give it its due for just a second. There were a couple of things about the Twilight franchise that, quite honestly, I thought were kind of creative. I liked what they did, how they took the traditional vampire mythologies and the traditional vampire stereotypes, and they turned some of them on their heads. You know, the whole thing about each vampire has a unique ability. There's a little bit of an X-Men thing in there, right? There's a little bit of a mutant thing where every mutant has a different power. So that every vampire had a different ability. The fact that they took the whole mythology of vampires in sunlight burn up, no, it's just that they get revealed in sunlight because whatever it is in their skin makes their skin. There are some things they did that were pretty cool. I liked the way the werewolves looked as these giant monstrous dogs. I liked that. Look, overall, was it pretty crappy? Yes, but give it its due. And the fact of the matter is, regardless of how much you like or hate it, fact of the matter is, it had a ravenous following. There are people who love this. I remember I was at the world premiere of the final Twilight movie, which I actually didn't think was all that. I thought the last one, like New Moon Part 7 or whatever it was called, I thought the last one actually wasn't that bad. I thought it actually wasn't that bad. But man, I'm telling you, I have been to a bunch of different movie premieres and a bunch of different fan events. I have never seen, other than a Star Wars premiere, I have never seen fans more ravenous and wound up and hyped like they were at this Twilight thing. So say what you want about it, but when you're able to put together a film franchise that elicits that kind of fan response, you've done something right. So look, I'm not a Twilight fan, but give it its due. It did some things right, and obviously did a lot of other things right, too, because they got the fan following that they had. So give it its due, even though if we don't like it. All right, what's next?
Jabin Carter says, no need for trailer for Avengers 4. Here's how to market it. At the end of every Disney film, the characters should dust. Imagine Mary Poppins turning to ash.
Yeah, there you go. Listen, now you're sounding like Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'll tell you exactly what I said to Robert Meyer Burnett. You're out of your damn mind. Yes, you have to market Avengers 4. There's this whole mythology, and I have this argument with Robert all the time, and I'm sure when we start back up the Weekly Hero again, we'll continue this argument. There is this nonsense, absolute mind-driveling nonsense theory out there that you don't have to market Avengers 4. Yes, you do. But the last one made $2 billion because they had an amazing marketing campaign. Look, can you open Avengers 4 to an $80, $90 million opening weekend, even without a marketing campaign? Yeah, you can. Are you going to open it to $200 million without a marketing campaign? No, don't be dumb. Of course you need a marketing campaign. Here's the thing. We as human beings, this is what we do. You do this, I do this, we're all guilty of this, all right? We tend to think that however I think, and the people standing within 10 feet of me think, that's how everybody thinks. No, it's not. That's not how it works. You and I may be completely plugged in and talking about Avengers 4 every day, know every single detail, what's going on in pre-production, post-production, production, what's going on with Chris Evans, what's going on with, Stark, all that. We may know all that. 95% of the average movie-going audience does not. And they do not stay plugged in like that. You don't advertise Avengers 4. My mom isn't going to know when the damn movie's opening. My cousins aren't going to know what the hell's going on. But we have this insulated mentality that because we talk about Avengers 4 all the time, and because you and I don't need an Avengers 4 trailer to get hyped and want to go out and buy tickets for Avengers 4, that means everybody's like that. No, it's not. It's not. Get over that. It's a dumb way of thinking, Robert. It's a dumb way of thinking. Of course they need to market this thing because they're not marketing it for you and me. They're marketing for the 95% of the other audiences going. Yes, they need to market this thing. Let's move past this silliness that they don't need trailers for Avengers 4. Of course they do. All right, what's next?
Ben Rayner says, any update on Avatar 2? Have they started filming?
Oh, they started filming amazingly after like 25 starts and stops. They did start filming this film a long time ago. As far as where they're at right now, I don't know, but we're kind of in that window. I've always said that there's this window of time that you don't want to hear anything, that where no news is good news. And that's from when they start filming to when they wrap production. There's that window of time that you don't want to hear anything because nothing good will come out of any news once they start filming to when they're done. Quiet is our friend when it comes to that. Now, I've been bagging on Avatar forever. They had so many false starts and say, oh, it's going to come out in 2017. Then it's going to come out in 2019. Now it's 2021. Then there were 2 sequels, and there were 3 sequels. Now there are 4 sequels, and who knows what else they're going to be doing a little bit later. I don't know. Pee Wee Herman's going to be the new bad guy for all I know. But at this point, no new news, but that's good news because they are shooting it and they're in production, and that's when you want everything to go quiet. All right, what's next?
Akeem says, I haven't seen any Marvel TV shows. Not an ounce of interest. Am I missing out?
Well, it depends. Like, when it comes to, let's say, there's 2 different categories. There's your broadcast television stuff, and then there's your Netflix stuff and your Hulu stuff. Your broadcast television stuff, you're talking Inhumans? No, you're not missing anything. And you're talking Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is always a little bit of a disruptive thing because, look, as much of a big of a fan as I am of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you all know I'm a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. sucks, in my opinion. You may like it, and that's great. I celebrate that you like it if you do. That's the subjectivity of entertainment. But I've never really, other than Clark Gregg, who is amazing. I watched that show just because Clark Gregg, and a little bit of Ming-Na as well. She's incredible. But I watched that show for Clark Gregg because he's great as Coulson. He's wonderful in that role, so I'll watch it for that. But I've never been happy with that show. So are you missing out on anything with Inhumans? God, no. Are you missing out on anything with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? In my opinion, no. But other people might think that you are. When it comes to the Netflix stuff, here's the thing. Even with the Netflix stuff, if all you're concerned about is the MCU, and you're worried that there is stuff being revealed in the television shows that you won't understand what's going on in the movie universe unless you watch TV shows, you got nothing to worry about. The movies, the movie universe, the movie franchises rely on nothing from television, not at all. As far as the movies go, the TV shows don't even exist, really. As far as just pure entertainment goes, listen, man, get on Daredevil. The season 1 and season 2 were spectacular. Season 3 is now out that I haven't started watching yet, but I've been hearing from a ton of you guys who have, and you guys are loving this damn show. So that might be one, and if you do dig Daredevil, then go on to Punisher. And if you dig the Punisher, I'd say then go on to a Jessica Jones. I'm not a big Jessica Jones fan, but there are a lot of people who are, including Courtney. We were having this little philosophical debate and discussion previously about Jessica Jones. But see if it's for you, but definitely start with Daredevil. Other than that, I would not say that any Marvel television is must watch. Not for the MCU. But if you just want good entertainment, at least start with Daredevil and see if you like that. All right, what's next?
Ben Jesusa, I think it's Jesusa, says, I watched The Titans for the first time last night. It's not bad. I feel I still need more for me to really get on board with the show.
Yeah, again, I'm hearing from a lot of people that the show itself is not nearly as bad as the trailers made it look, because the trailers are just god-awful. I have no interest in watching the show, except for the interest that you guys are creating in me, telling me that's actually not all that bad. But I'll get around to it again once Swamp Thing launches, and then I'll get the DC streaming service. All right, what's next?
From Angry Irish Benjamin, this one's a little long. He's talking about his post on Zack Snyder and Batman vs. Superman. MCU movies appeal to hardcore comic fans and people who never picked up a comic in their life because they're fun, thrilling, and come in many flavors, and are helmed by likable lead characters. But Snyder once claimed that MCU movies are all the same, flavor of the week. With that attitude, he doesn't understand why MCU movies appeal to people, and IMO, DC, and Marvel comic words are more similar than different. Ergo, he doesn't realize why Superman and Batman appeal to everyone, not just fans. That bled into his movies and affected them.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think this whole, and most people today know that the argument is nonsense. There was this whole radically erroneous concept out there that all Marvel films are the same. No, they're not. That's just a platitude spouted by people who are looking for an excuse to bag on MCU films. They're not. They're radically different films. Do they have roughly the same DNA? Absolutely they do, because they want to create a cohesive universe. So they do have the same DNA, but they at the same time, they're very, very different movies. Ant-Man as a heist film is very different from Winter Soldier, which was like a 70s political thriller, which is very different from, say, a Civil War, which was very different from an Iron Man 3, which was very different from an Infinity War, which was very different from a Black Panther. They are radically different movies. And I think, here's the thing, and I have this discussion with fans all the time, my fellow fans, I should say, is that, you know, you cannot make comic book movies exclusively for the hardcore comic book fans. I remember saying that once, and I got so much backlash. It's like, we're the ones who know what these comic book characters are. You make them for us, damn it. And it's like, no, if you want to fail, sure, do that. But when you're making these movies, you have to understand you're not just making these movies for the 3% of us who actually read the comics. You're making the movie for a wide audience. So you want to make them in such a way that is respectful to the existing audience. You want to make them in a way that is in spirit, in line and in tone with the original source material. But at the same time, you have to make them in such a way that understands that you have to appeal to a much broader audience than just that. That is your core. That is your nucleus, but you got to grow out from that. You can't just stay there. I remember I got in a lot of trouble with a lot of, you know, quote unquote Star Wars fans when I said, you can't just make that. I'm the biggest Star Wars fan in the world. And I said, you can't just make Star Wars movies completely 100% catered to existing Star Wars fans. Now, a lot of people took when I said that and they completely twisted my words as if I was saying, screw Star Wars fans. I wasn't saying that, but what I said was you can't just make your universe completely cater to the existing fan base. You know who did that for a long time? Star Trek did that for a long time, and they were on the brink of going out of existence before J.J. Abrams came along and relaunched and invigorated the franchise. All I said was you can't just focus on the core. And I think there is, as much of, I'm a big fan of Zack Snyder. I've had a chance to hang out with Zack Snyder a few times. Very cool guy. I love his films. Check out his Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole. Very underrated animated film. I like it very much. But I think there's some fairness in the criticism saying that, you know, Zack Snyder seemed to forget a little bit that he was also making it for a wider audience. I think there might be some legitimacy to that. I don't think it's just as black and white as that, but I think there might be a little bit of legitimacy to that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Jump down in the comments section. Let me know what you think. All right, what's next?
Stubby McShape wants to clarify, on yesterday's open mic, I wrote that the cancellation of Iron Fist signaled the end of Marvel shows on Netflix. I meant Luke Cage, not Iron Fist.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, so I did open mic yesterday, and that kind of came up. And like, again, on Friday, you know, I would have said, no, it doesn't. The cancellation of Iron Fist does not mark the end of Luke Cage. Here's the executive from Netflix telling us we're super happy with all the other shows we've got. 24 hours later, they pull the plug on Luke Cage. So you were right on the money. All right, what's next?
Ben Sultan says, do you ever think that we are going to get a Static Shock movie since DC is giving a chance less known characters on the big screen? I am actually in the middle. I don't like the Static Shock character. I don't think the Static Shock character is all that interesting. There's a number of DC characters, a number of Marvel characters I don't think are all that interesting. Static Shock is one of them. However, it does have a fan base. And you know what? A year ago, I would have said extremely low chance. And I think a year ago I did say extremely low chance that we'll ever get a Static Shock movie. Today is different. Today, we're in an era where Warner Brothers and DC seem to be pivoting away from the more traditional heroes. They're pivoting away from Batman. They're pivoting away from Superman that we've seen that happening. And they're starting to explore a little bit more into the lesser-known characters. We've got Titans on their streaming service now. We got a Swamp Thing coming. We've got a Shazam movie coming. So while I still don't think the odds are high, I certainly think today the chances for a Static Shock movie are much higher than they were a year ago because it looks like there's a philosophical shift, a paradigm exchange going on over at Warner Brothers that could open the door for something like that. So,
It's not impossible. It's more likely today than it's ever been. So let's see what happens. All right, what's next?
Angry Irish Benjamin is back and says, P.S. Your opinion is no less valid than mine, John. But with a drop-off of 69% on the second week, it seems people genuinely didn't like Snyder's Heroes.
Well, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, that the bigger a movie opens, the more likely it is that it's going to have a larger second week drop off, right? Because when you get a movie that has, like, I remember Avengers 4 opened and people said, you know, Avengers had over $235 million opening or something like that. Anyway, I said Avengers 4, I meant Avengers 3. Avengers Infinity War opened like 235, something in that neighborhood. And I remember hearing from people, it's so good, it's going to have like a 10% drop-off. I'm like, oh my God. No, it is not going to have a 10% drop-off. Yes, it's good. Yes, it's great. But the bigger the opening is, the harder it is to have a sub 50% drop-off because everybody went to go see it on its first weekend. I mean, that's the thing. When the bigger the opening weekend, the harder it is to have a less than 50% drop. And, you know, you had... man, the Snyder films did not open huge. They were not critically well received. The audience did not give it very positive word of mouth. And, you know, look, it's fair to say that the Snyder movies were very divisive. It's fair to say that. It wasn't just one film, it was multiple films. It was Man of Steel, even though that's a top 10 comic book movie of all time for me. It was Batman versus Superman, and it was Justice League. And the films were divisive. Yeah, so yeah, not all the audience was on board with that. There's no denying that. The numbers are there. The facts are there. So just where do they go from here? That's the question that they face now. All right, let's take 3 more.
Okay, this is really cute. So Tyler Yeats said, had my first college interview today as a grad. I think I nailed it.
College interview? Do you mean job interview as a grad or college interview? Either way, you crushed it. That's what's important. Go out and grab life by the throat and make it your service wench. I don't know. What's the male version of a service wench? Your stoogey boy. I don't know. Hey, what's next?
Lee Mallinson, I'm older now than my father ever was. This may be the only thing I do that matters.
That's
Best
Ben
line.
Affleck, Batman. I'm older now than he ever was. That was a power. You know what that line reminded me of? When he said that line, I thought that was actually a very profound line that wasn't put in the right place in the movie. I think that line could have been used more effectively another time in the movie. But as he's reflecting on his life, and he looks and he says, I'm now older than my dad ever was. It's a powerful, it reminded me a lot of that line in Star Trek when Captain Picard said, and I'm paraphrasing here because I cannot remember word for word that he said, but he said, there's an introspection that happens when you realize that there are fewer days ahead than there are behind. And Picard talking about the age he was at. He goes, there's something internally that happens when you realize there are fewer days ahead than there are behind. And there was something really reminiscent of that when Affleck said that line in the movie, when he said, I'm now older than he ever was. I think that was a really nice moment. I just think it could have been placed in a more effective place in the movie, that's all. All right, what's next?
Iggy is Horrible says, can we get an open mic on Halloween? So good.
Like actually on October 31st? I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I like being in Vegas on Halloween. Vegas is a great place to be on Halloween. It's a lot of fun. It is crazy. It's always crazy in Vegas, but it's really crazy on Halloween. Or else, for the first time ever, Ann and I are in a place now where we actually have a front door and we might actually have kids come to the front door. And I think I might want to have some fun and actually give some candy out to some kids. But I don't know. I don't know about an open mic on Halloween. I'll probably take a pass on that one. But thank you for asking. All right, last question of the day.
So I Don't Get Likes says, got a free ticket for Venom, so I saw it. 4 out of 10.
Look, here's the thing. I don't blame you for that. I enjoyed Venom, but I've been saying for a long time that it is one of those films that even if you like it, you can recognize there are issues with it. So then the question becomes, as an individual fan, did the weaknesses of the film stand out more to you, or did the strengths of the film stand out more to you? For some of us, the strengths stood out more. For some others, the weaknesses stood out more. And I can't blame you for that. I really can't. It's a bad villain. It's a terrible first act that probably lost you right away. So I can't blame you for having that thing. But for me, as for me in my house, the good stuff stood out more than the bad. But not so much so that I'd say, you're crazy if you don't love Venom. No, I get it. I totally do. That's the beautiful thing about movies, man. We can all have these different opinions. All right, guys, That will do it for all the time that we have here today. Listen, for those of you who sent in live questions that we didn't have time to get around to, don't you worry. I'm going to gather up those questions, and we will use them in an upcoming companion video, so your questions will get answered. Thank you so much for sending those in. That will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show, guys. Thank you so much. I want to thank Courtney Ray Allen. Courtney, where can people find you on Instagram?
So you can find me at Courtney Ray Allen, also on Twitter, Court Ray Allen News.
And I want to thank the guys in the booth, fact checker Jonathan, Ricky back there. Thank you guys for all that. And thank you guys for being here and making this show possible. Don't forget, we'll be back again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with the next installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks for bearing with us as we work through all of our technical issues, new studio and all you know. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.